I'm going to be showing you how to color with block crayons. Now, block crayons are a very unique type of crayons. I'm sure you're used to the stick crayons that you probably grew up coloring with. In the 60s, a Waldorf teacher designed these new kind of blocks so that, for his 4th grade class actually, so that he could color with broad bands of color. The children could color with broad bands of color. And they're really quite versatile because you have not only the broad side to color with, but the medium and the small and even the point. He designed these for the 4th grade, but we've found over the years that they have been wonderful for children as young as the kindergarten, the nursery to color with, all the way up through the grades, as far up as the children who are coloring want to use them. Once they master them, some children feel they just want to stick with the block crayons, others want to mix them with stick crayons, and others want to stop using them and use something else. When we use the block crayons in the kindergarten, I feel that children should have no guidance as to what they color with. I think they should be able to use block crayons, stick crayons, chalk, colored chalks, pastels, or whatever. The idea for the children when they're coloring in the kindergarten is that they're exploring. They're exploring this media, they're exploring how to make marks using their hands, their arms, and I don't feel that we really need to guide them at all. It's all exploratory. These young children need to make these archetypal shapes. Like they need to scribble. They need to see what it feels like to make a circle when they make that gesture with their arms. Then they often will go from the circle to putting maybe a square, a cross in the middle of the circle. Then the circles start to sprout limbs, arms and legs, and maybe there's a little smiley face in the circle. And eventually the children will, through their exploration, come up with a figure. They said, oh, there's mommy, there's daddy, there's me. In the kindergarten, they're exploring all this media, all these different forms of media themselves. If they learn anything from you, perhaps you'll be sitting there coloring with the children. The children are sitting at the table, they're coloring as they want to, and maybe you are using the block crayons to do your drawing. They may or may not be interested in what you're doing. It doesn't matter. They can see, if they happen to look over, they can see what you're doing. They might say, what are you doing, mommy or daddy? Or maybe they don't even care because they're so involved in their own picture. So that's the only guidance. You don't tell them how to hold the crayon, as I will be teaching you later. And you don't tell them how to put the color and how to mix the colors. Let them explore that all themselves. And even in the kindergarten, they can use all of the colors. As you see, I have just the 3, and my work is working primarily with the primary colors, and I'll explain that later, why that is. So that's kindergarten, the young ones. And then when the child is ready for 1st grade, then they are ready to start taking direction. And that is the point when all of their other art materials can be put aside and the children can play with them when it's not lesson time. And then you're going to start to teach them how to work with the block crayons. And at that point, I suggest that you just have the primary colors and that it's just the block crayons to start with, not the stick, and certainly no pencils or pens or magic markers or anything like that. They start very simply, and you will be always a step or 2 ahead of them. We hope that you will learn from this work that we're doing today and practice, and you will gain some proficiency yourself. And then the children will be learning from you. And with the 1st graders, it will be very, very simple. And you must always plan ahead what it is that you're planning on the children coloring and keep it simple. And then when they learn how to do that. Then you can sense when they're ready to learn something, to take something else on and to learn something else. As they go up in the grades, the children will start putting more detail in their work. They'll start expressing themselves through the different techniques you've taught them so that they can create their own images. You will be teaching them how to draw people and how to draw animals and how to draw landscapes and such. And then with this knowledge, they will put these pieces together to express themselves, to express the images that they have in their minds when they're listening to a story. But that comes slowly. And then they're going to want to start putting more and more detail in it. Maybe they'll start shading, and you can show them how to do shadows and shading. At some point they will possibly want to use more than the 3 colors, and then they can bring in the secondary colors. They will also possibly at some point want not to use the block crayons anymore and just use the stick crayons. But it's a progression. It's a progression. But we're just going to start at the very beginning, which would be preparing you to start working with the young child. Now, if you have older children and they haven't really been successful with the block crayons, I suggest that you sort of back up and make it a play activity where you start doing some of the very simpler techniques that I'm going to show you. Start doing those with even your older children. And they will zoom ahead, undoubtedly. You know, something that might take a first grader a few days to learn, undoubtedly an older child will be able to pick it up very quickly. And they'll probably want to start exploring and experimenting themselves with techniques, and that's fine. But always make sure that they have the fundamentals there, and then they can move ahead. And then they'll see very quickly that these are actually tools that they can use and they can get really wonderful effects from, whereas before they might have thought, oh, they're too hard, they're too bulky to use, and they don't know how. So that's something that we'll be working on.